All right, this is a meeting of the Appointments Committee on February 16th at 3 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and will rebroadcast in the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. Anybody? No? Okay. This meeting will be replayed via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. May also be accessed via the Government Access Channel, live video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable website.
Counselors, Burdick,
Here.
Torkelson.
Here.
I know, I'm drawing a blank.
I'm here.
Clark,
Here.
Mendez,
Here.
Bloom,
Here.
you have full quorum.
All right, get started. Welcome. Thank you very much for applying. I see you're interested in a couple different things. Water quality, I think, was pretty much different. So let's get started.
Did you want to do public comment to see if they?
Oh, yeah.
Speak?
Yeah, does anybody have public comments?
Do any of you gentlemen like to have public comment?
Just observing, thank you.
Go ahead. Mr. Schwab, how about yourself?
No, thanks, just listening in.
Okay, thank you. You're all set, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So we will continue. So the first question I'd like to ask is this. Is how important is consensus to you? And how do you think you can go about achieving it?
I mean, I think consensus ultimately is key to being able to move forward on things. The way to achieve consensus is everybody needs to collaborate.
Mhm.
You need to be able to share opinions, you need to be able to dig into details, do your research, do your homework, bring things to the table. At the end of the day, you know, it's an analysis task. You all do your research, you all look at it, you all come to your own conclusions. If you're not in agreement, you either have to hammer out the common ground, or you have to go back and start over. But when you reach a point where you're ready to move forward, I mean, you have to, you know, make your decision, whatever that decision is, you all have to get behind it and move forward on it.
Okay, and what do you think right now is the biggest challenge for this town?
Just pick one.
You can comment on how many you want.
Yeah, I mean, certainly housing, certainly water quality. Yeah. Environmental issues in general, wind power in particular. Yeah, there's a pretty hefty slate of things that need to be tackled, and it's hard to say, well, we're gonna do them single threaded, because they're all banging at the gates.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anybody on the panel?
More questions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
As far as what the town is challenged with, what do you think we're doing? What do you think the town is doing well?
Kind of taking a reset, I think, is a real positive thing. I think, let's say last year was a tempestuous year for a lot of reasons. And I think that in a lot of ways, I mean, between the election going on and everybody on the council having to run at the same time because of the redo. And then you put what was going on with the wind projects in the midst of that. I think everybody got kind of gridlocked. I think it was really hard to see ways forward when everybody was at such loggerheads. And at such loggerheads to the point where they couldn't agree on it. So I think that with the election being over, with, you know, the new council membership, with the new leadership, I think just taking a reset, reevaluating things and then, you know, trying to plot out a thoughtful path forward. This makes a lot of sense. Follow?
Or do you have a follow? I have lots of questions, but you. Thank you. It's good to see you and, thank you for applying. Have you looked or attended any of the infrastructure and energy committee meetings?
I have not. I've looked back at some of the prior things, but no, I haven't looked at anything recent.
Or you haven't looked at live streaming?
No.
What do you think you can do to contribute to that particular committee?
Yeah, it's funny, it was serendipity, but the chairman of the committee was at last night's town council meeting. And, I ran into him in the hallway for a couple of minutes during the break. And, you know, I kind of asked him, I haven't heard much from this committee, you know, recently. You know, I can look back a couple of years, it looks like they were involved in a lot of things. There was the communities thing, you know, 3 to 4 years ago. But I was surprised I hadn't seen more spotlight on that committee, given all of the kinds of infrastructure problems and energy issues that the town's been facing. And, you know, maybe that's just a function of, you know, it's a kind of committee that works quietly in the background, but I hadn't seen. And I've been, you know, paying attention to a lot of the town meetings and then trying to go to a lot of the different, you know, committee meetings and the town council meetings. And it really just hadn't popped on my radar at all. And, yeah, and he said, well, you know, yeah, it has been, yeah, kind of trying to settle on an agenda and, you know, fill out its membership and try to find a path forward. So, I mean, I would think that there is certainly a role for that committee in all of the, you know, stuff going on about, you know, what are we doing with Park City? What are we doing with, you know, the wind power in general, with the substations, with the groundwater, with the sewer. What are we doing with, you know, areas of the town that aren't being sewered? You know, there's certainly a lot of fertile ground, it would seem, for a committee with this charge to be looking at. And whether they're, you know, whether they're used by the council as a research farm, you know, dig into these details, pull things together, you know, do some evaluations, some analysis, come up with some, you know, some strategies. Yeah, I think there's certainly a call for, you know, what this committee seems to be charged with.
I think this committee can get recharged, not to use your words, and I recognize you from the local comprehensive planning committee meetings and in the town council meetings, so I know you're invested in the town business. Go ahead, if you have other questions.
No,
Okay, well,
the chair has to recognize
sorry.
parliamentary rules.
Yeah.
Okay, so who would like to speak next?
You got a bunch, go on. I may not have to ask.
In particular, in relationship to this committee, what particular skills do you bring that you think would be valuable to the energy and infrastructure committee?
I'm a good analyst. I've spent 42 years with the same company in my work days. And every time I tell people that, they kind of gasp and say, how can you stay in the same job for 42 years? But honestly, I change jobs like every 2 years. You know, my resume looks like a laundry list. You know, there wasn't a department that I didn't work in. But in my travels, I got into business analysis, strategic planning, and we were a company that worked a lot with state compliance, state regulations. I served on some committees with in both Illinois and in New York and in Delaware, where we were working directly with state officials and drafting some new legislation, drafting regulations. So that atmosphere, you know, I mean, doesn't scare me. And I think that one of my hallmarks has always been that I'm good at analyzing. Reading out details, reading out, you know, the little quirks and intricacies of how you make things work for you. And then, you know, synthesizing from that, you know, the strategy and the plan for now what do you do with it?
Have you served in any other boards or committees in town government?
No.
In your past? And going off Jeff's question, can you give us one example where something in particular that you did brought a group of people together to come into agreement to create consensus, like maybe a work example?
Well, when I was working, I was currently in a role of VP of operations. And we were trying to shore up some of our business units, some that were underperforming. And a lot of our sales and marketing folks were like, you know what, the group that's underperforming, we should just stop doing it. And my notion was, we should probably double down on it, but we're never going to be able to do that if it's just being lost in the mesh of the bigger picture. And we went back and forth, and I mean, it was an analysis project, but we started pulling all the data together. We started, you know, looking at the trends, and I ended up convincing them, yeah, we should actually just spin up a new division. And if we're gonna make a go of this, that's what makes the most sense for us to do. And everybody looked at it like I had lost my mind. And we kept looking at it, and I kept showing them the numbers, and ultimately we did decide to spin up a new division. And I actually left my position to take up a senior role with the new division, which put me on a plane to Madison, Wisconsin 3 times a month, but that was my penance. But yeah, I mean, we put it together. We said, no, let's see where the analysis leads us, and that's where it took us. I once took a course, not a course, a seminar or something, for leadership with our company. And it was like when I got named Glenn Barker, who was big at the time in behavioral organization. And we went through all these exercises. It was like a two-day retreat. And one of the things that came out of it was you ended up wearing little yellow buttons that kind of said how you fit into the organization. And I always laugh because I ended up with 3 buttons, but I was primarily both a contributor and a collaborator. And I think that was just kind of indicative of my approach.
In having looked at this committee and looking at the kind of the minutes or the agendas in the past, is there anything that comes to mind where you see a direction that you think that this committee should be going in? Because having read, I'm hoping you've read its charge.
I read its
looked
charge.
into the past. And is there anything that comes to mind that you, having your experience that you're bringing to the table, that makes you kind of come with a light bulb moment that you might be able to bring to this committee?
No, not at this point. I've looked at the charge for the committee. I didn't see an agenda for upcoming meetings, and I found where there were recordings of prior meetings that were available, but I didn't see the agendas or minutes.
Thank you.
Joe, you might have already touched on this, but you know, when you looked at the charge and you thought of checking off that Infrastructure and Energy Committee. Yeah, what was it about that particular committee that really grabbed you, you've checked out planning board and water quality, so those three, and housing, those four obviously meant something special to you. What does infrastructure and energy, what makes it special?
I'm the kid that took the watch apart and put it back together again because I wanted to see how it works. How things work has always fascinated. I'm the geek that sits home at night and watches, the history channels, great engineering projects. This is how we built the Oakland Bridge. It's just the planning for that kind of thing. The strategy of what you decide to undertake, and then just the practical logistics of and then how you actually do this stuff. It has just always been an interest of mine. Thank you.
I think you covered it pretty well. I think all of you that, I have one question about, so what was the name of the company? Walters Kidder Corporation? Kluwer. What was the nature of that corporation? It's a multinational conglomerate type scenario, or?
Yeah, we ultimately were acquired by a Dutch-based multinational. Before that, it was something called CT Corporation Trust Company, Commerce Clearinghouse, which is not to be confused with the sweepstakes company. Essentially, back in the day when I first started, it was a company that worked only for corporate lawyers, essentially assisting them with state compliance. So, we did incorporation papers, we did, merger papers. If you had an existing company and you wanted to do business in a neighboring state, we could do the registration for you and get you licensed. And then we maintained records. Companies had to have an agent that could be served with lawsuits in every state where they were doing business. So we acted as what they call a registered agent in every state. So you didn't have to have physical presence to be doing business there, but if, a consumer wanted to serve a suit on you, they would serve it on us, and then we made instructions for how to handle that. So we handled literally millions of lawsuits here. And then we kind of, as time changed, as technology changed, the company sort of, also grew with that. Commerce Clearinghouse, which was our parent company, was also a publisher. Published, topical. Anytime you see any law drama on TV and somebody is sitting in front of a bookcase full of big volumes, that's Commerce Clearinghouse, or now Walters Kluwer. And back then they used to, like, every week they would send out loose leaf pages with all the updates for all these giant volumes of regulations. And, some poor schlub would have to sit there and file all those loose leaf pages. But so we got into publishing, and then as we got into more technology, I started working with our technology group as kind of like the business representative as we automated our paper systems. And we used to have these giant Rolodex machines that sounded like an airplane propeller when they rotated. And, gradually we got all of our customer records online, and then we started developing software for law firms to use to actually do their work. Document generators. Well, we got all kinds of kind of technological tools that, we marketed them to the legal industry. And bit by bit, we got more involved with the states, matching up with their technology. So, that's.
So
that's kind of
consultation, business consultation essentially, or like a Accenture or McKinsey or whatever. Like that.
Consultation, facilitation, compliance.
Right. Sounds good.
Was a big thing, just making sure people were compliant. Every year you have to file your annual reports with every state where you're doing business, making sure that you've done that,
Right.
all that kind of
That
stuff.
sounds good to me. It sounds like a good match for such a thing, for such a committee, perhaps. That's all I have.
Yeah, Just two more questions. We didn't ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, which you have been doing, but how long have you been on the Cape and how long have you been in the town of Barnstable?
Been on the Cape part-time for, I don't know, over 20 years. My wife, who's my second wife, she's been on the Cape her whole life. She lived in Barnstable, she lived in the Mills. After my first wife had passed away, and we started getting together. We started coming up here weekends. She always maintained her house up here in the Mills. And it was getting to the point in time where, you know, we were able to start like working remotely. I didn't have to be commuting into Manhattan every day, or flying to Madison. And so we started coming up here just like work remotely from the Cape. So we probably were splitting things about halfway for a number of years. And then what about 6 or 7 years ago? We came up full time.
So along the lines of what Charlie was asking about this committee or a committee in particular, why is it that you're interested in getting more involved now at this juncture where you haven't been since you've been here more full time? What's the draw there?
I had been involved in other towns where I had lived. Yeah, it's always kind of been an interest of mine. It was always a matter of time allocated. You know, when I was working this time, especially when I was commuting into Manhattan, I was involved in the town of Connecticut where I was living at the time. But it took me 2.5 hours to get home from Manhattan. So it was hard to make 7 o'clock, you know, meeting of the town committee. So I you know, was a little hamstrung, but, you know, I was involved with whatever I could on a volunteer basis. And then we went from there to Rhode Island, and again, I got involved in what was going on. I was attending meetings. So once we were up here full time, I retired. We bought a new house, had projects to get done, and then it's like, okay, now I'm retired. What am I gonna do? So I was interested in what was going on. There was certainly a lot going on, you know, to draw my interest. So I started just attending meetings and, you know, trying to pick up and piece together what I could.
Okay. Everybody else set?
Sure, I mean, I just like to say that people ask me the very same question. When I started to run, how come you decided to run at this time of your life, you know?
Yeah. What's your wife's maiden name, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah,
She related to Steve?
no, I don't think so.
Grew up on Main Street in Barnstable?
No, she grew up in Whitman, but when she was married, they lived up in Barnstable Village.
Okay.
And everything then was Lisa.
Because I'm a Billy, so he said Masterton, so of course. Well, thank you so much. And the way that it works is this, is that you're our first interview of the new sitting committee. So we have some work that we have to do out of this, obviously.
Sure.
We're in the middle now trying to bang out our agenda. So once we have the interview process going and we make a decision, Cynthia will notify you via email or phone call, whatever you prefer. Either way, and let you know what the results are.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds like a plan.
all right. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, last one. All
No.
day over. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, folks. Have a nice night. You too. You can start today.
Do we formally terminate this meeting now?
No, we have other matters we have to take care of before. So initial thoughts on this canvas?
On Joe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just the only reason why I'm asking is because it'll be fresh in my mind and I'm
Oh,
not,
of
who knows?
well, I think that his background makes him would make an interesting choice for this kind of work. Anybody who's worked in, anybody who's worked in the municipal, the business and municipal, meeting point, who's had to work on regulation, who's detail oriented, has a corporate background. That doesn't scare me. I think that that's the kind of people that we need, but it depends on what committee. I mean, how many, we have, so at this point, we have a grand total of how many openings? We have, what, 6 people who have applied, and how many openings do we have for all the committees that we have? What is it? We have quite a few more openings. So.
Cindy wrote this out for us, that there's 2 regular members.
Well, I
but I'm
think he's
talking
talking,
committee
he's
one.
talking in general.
Because what I mean to say is that, so we'll have a limited pool of people for not an unlimited, but a much larger set of seats.
Mhm.
So I think it's more, unless a bunch of people show up and start applying very shortly, it's more about where do we put people and who's gonna fit in what spot best. And then, in terms of, are we gonna sit, do you get to a point in this committee where you say, well, this person's just straight up no good, we can't have them? Or do we
Well,
try to
so.
place well,
Well, doesn't that seem kind of logical? If they're not a good fit, we
Well-
shouldn't be just putting them there to fill a seat.
well, not necessarily, I mean, but you think it's funny.
No, I do. I mean, I think that we're tasked with a very serious job here, and to think that we're just gonna put somebody in a seat because there's an empty seat and we have a warm body is just not a great energy to be coming out with, that's all.
But I don't think that's not what I was intending to say. Do you think that people who go through the whole process of coming here, applying, meeting with us, do you think that those people, do you think that anybody that arrives at that point is gonna be somebody that we should just be like, see ya? I mean, this requires a certain amount of, you have to apply, you have to go through a process, you have to be somewhat serious in order to get here.
Well,
That-
in the past, what we've done is obviously qualifications matter,
for
demeanor matters.
right,
And also, if somebody is interested in multiple committees, we try to find the best fit.
well, that's what I'm saying.
So like this gentleman is, okay, he's interested in multiple committees. So if somebody comes in and is uniquely qualified for this committee, we might be able to put him on housing or another committee he may be interested in.
Right, well, I understand that. I was just, my thought was, so how, and not to be glib about it, because that wasn't my intention, was to be glib about it, but so how, restrictive are we going to be in terms of who comes in, what kind of questions we ask them, and then where we place them?
Well, you have to remember that these are all volunteers,
Absolutely, well, that's what I'm trying to
okay?
say.
And, obviously you can ask questions. You can ask any question you want, as long as it doesn't border on, ignorance. Because a big problem that we've had in this town is people reaching compromise and people being able to work together without it turning vitriol.
Right,
So as us, as a committee, it's important for us to show that example to the people we are interviewing. We can't expect people who we're interviewing not to be vitriolic if we are.
right,
So I try not to be confrontational. I ask them very simple questions to ask. I mean, very simple questions to answer. Now, you can get into education, work experience, all of that stuff, which you should. Because, these are, even though it's advisory, it's still important, especially with what's going on in the town right now. So, like I said, with me in particular, and I won't tell anybody what questions to ask or how to ask them, that's up to them. I'm not a dictator. So that's the way I do it, is I try to show deference to people like I like them to show it to me.
Well, I was glad that you started out with that question about consensus, because it puts people on notice that that's a very important part of a successful committee.
It is, and
When the first question is one, the
That's the
first
goal.
question the person gets is kind of like, that's an important question.
yeah, and it is because what's happened in the last few years is that the town has gotten very combative. And if you don't see eye to eye with some people, you know, they drag you through the mud. They think you're an adversary. Just a differing opinion isn't the wrong opinion, it's a different opinion.
Exactly.
You know, and as an appointments committee, we can have differing opinions. But it doesn't mean we have to be mean, ignorant, and all of that. That's why I asked about consensus.
Yeah.
You know, because to me, that's important.
Yeah.
Because the way that you come up with good policy is compromise. It can't be a zero-sum game. The best policy is always made a compromise. You may not get everything you want, but if you are in the minority as far as a vote goes and you get something, then it's compromise. And that's the way I look at this whole thing, is you have to be willing to compromise.
And also,
Sounds
just
good.
to answer your question about who gets to this side
Right.
of the table. We interview anybody and everybody that submits an application.
Right.
So if you submit one, I mean, the list that I gave you, that's in the deck, that's waiting. That gets updated hourly. We get applications every day, so I can make a list on Monday, it's outdated on Tuesday, because I've received more applications. So it all depends on how often or how you want to. For the Infrastructure and Energy Committee, we have 3 more people that need to be interviewed, so you know, what the last appointments committee did was they waited until everybody was interviewed that had submitted applications, and then a decision was made. But the other thing is you've got to decide how long you want that open for. Because you don't want to cause quorum issues on a committee, you're not appointing people.
Exactly.
If you're waiting a month and interviewing, 50 people in that month, you're gonna forget number one.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of discuss this candidate now.
Mhm.
Well, at least, you know, fresh in our mind, we can make notes. And then compare that to the next people we interview.
And then you have to decide how many people you actually want to interview at each committee meeting. And then you can either do it by committee, so you could get all of the people that are, applying for, say, the Board of Health. They're all on one. Because the next thing that's gonna come up, that's gonna hit you pretty quick, is in March. I start to give you those that are expiring in June. So there's a list of those candidates that have expirations of June of 30th, 2024. So you have to decide whether to call them back in to be re-interviewed for consideration of reappointment. And interview those new candidates that have submitted applications to fill those positions that are expired. Or going to be expired. Because nobody that's currently sits on a committee right now is guaranteed reappointment. You're only considered at the end of your term again by the appointments committee.
Do they ask?
They have to
Can you consider-
notify me. What I do is I reach out to everybody that's expiring and I say, your term is about to expire June 30th, 2024. Please let me know if you wish to return for another 3-year term
And
for
then-
consideration of reappointment by the appointments committee.
and then. at
They'll
that
send
point,
me an
you
email.
can Tell us.
They get put on a list, but then on the second list is anybody that's put in a new application that may have never served, but knows that that position is gonna be open at the end of June. So you have to interview those people as well. Cause it's not a guarantee that the person that holds the seat right now is gonna hold it for the next 3, because you've got other people that have now put in an application that wanna serve on that board. So you've got to interview another pool of people.
So the person in the current seat doesn't have any special sauce because he has been on the committee for 3 years.
Nope, just like if you came in and applied brand new. They've been on the committee, so they've got 3 years worth of experience.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're automatically reappointed for another 3-year term, because we've had a lot of people apply knowing that there's gonna be terms expiring. And now they wanna jump on board and become part and help the town and give their experience. And we've got some people that have been on boards for 30 years, 20 years, 15 years.
Hmm.
Because nobody's ever applied, when their term is expired, so they showed interest. They got reappointed, Nobody has, no new applications came in, but that's just for consideration as well.
Thank you.
So I think what we need to do is we need to come up with a firm agenda. And we need to start getting these people in. Because we're gonna get a backlog. Sure, of course.
Ms. Little told me last night after the council meeting that as soon as the, posting for our agenda was posted, that you received some more applications for these two committees.
Mhm.
So my point is that by posting it, it advertised these openings and caused a little more interest. And as you know, we announced last night, so that might also cause some more interest for applicants for these two particular committees.
But my question to you would be, how long do you want me to hold the application period open for these two committees that you're currently interviewing for tonight, which is the infrastructure and zoning? Zoning is a regulatory, infrastructure is advisory. Do you want to hold the zoning open for a couple more weeks until your next meeting in March to see if we get any more applications and then add them on?
I think that's a good idea because especially the regulatories, we have to get those.
Yeah, and you also want to give the public enough span of time
Yeah.
to, somebody could be away, somebody could be, this is a tough time of year as well to advertise, because a lot of people go down south. Where they go where it's warmer and not 9 inches of snow, so they don't regularly check what's open or available.
Mhm.
But I can tell you, I get the majority of my applications starting in March, which is, so that depends on how long you want.
So let's discuss that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just quick question. Do these vacancies also show up in the Barnstable e-news?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Lynn asks what vacancy, she connects the town council webpage,
okay.
which, I'm happy to say, IT has come up with a fix. So now anything I do in the database is gonna transfer over. So I plan on spending my weekend going through and putting associate in the database so that it shows up on the webpage. So when a vacancy comes up, it's either a full member, an associate, an alternate, or somebody that needs to be specially recognized, because we have a lot of people that are on other committees that go to another committee to represent their original committee. And that has to be advertised, because you don't want people putting in applications for positions that they're not necessarily qualified for. So I will get
That's
that
great news.
fixed.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'll get that fixed.
Sorry you have to work through the weekend.
Give me something to
She
do.
works 7 days a week.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah. So, as I said, I think it's very important, especially with these regulatory committees seated. Because without them, government can kind of. come to
But
a
it doesn't
standstill.
look like ZBA is disabled for a quorum. They have a vacancy, but they have
Yeah, but
3
it-
associates.
But still, even though they have a quorum, it's important to get that seat filled.
I understand. I'm just saying that
Because
they're,
they're one person away from not having it.
no, they have 3 or 4 associate members.
Yeah, well, we
That
should still
they
get
can
it
vote.
filled. Yeah, we should still get it filled.
But I think that at least 2 weeks. would-
Yeah, no, absolutely, not today. Yeah, but absolutely. I think 2, maybe 3 weeks. Sure.
So do you plan on are we gonna plan on meeting every 2 weeks? Or are we gonna do every month?
I think we should do every 2 weeks until we
Yeah.
clear the deck.
Right. And what is the total number of applicants that we have now for all positions?
That as of the end of today,
As of the end, as of the day this month.
14.
there's 15. There was another one that came in this afternoon.
We got 15. How many openings are there total on all boards and committees?
I think it changes.
Currently, or closest that you can,
Yeah.
however close you can.
Well, the vacant, I guess I'm not understanding your question, but the vacancies are the ones that
But
are
this is the
missing from the
total,
committee.
that's the total vacancies
Yeah.
that are in the, so
Yeah.
the ones that we have now, these 2,
Correct.
3, 4, 5, 6.
But come the end of March,
Right,
you're gonna have probably 30 more.
Right.
because their terms
I
end.
guess that's what I'm trying to illustrate, is that a limited number of applicants, an enormous number of vacancies. And then a lot of the people who are in those committees are going to be reappointed because of what, and nobody else is around. So yeah, we meet every 2 weeks and we can go through them as quickly as we possibly can for this bunch.
Mhm.
And then start getting people into the idea maybe of other committees, other placements, and see who we can bring in. That's what I'm just trying to illustrate, is that we have a lot of need for a lot of different committees
Mhm.
and a very limited number of people who want to show up for them.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I was trying to say the first time that's what I'm trying to illustrate.
At this time, but I think this, cycle, like we advertise particularly these two committees for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then pick another 2 committees. I think at that rate, we'll be able to fit what is left after the town council leadership seats a subcommittee to maybe revisit some of these committees. I did some look at what's existing, and there are 5 vacancies on the Council on Aging that has 12 members. CFAC is has 2 vacancies for 9 members. Human Services has not been meeting a quorum. They have 2 vacancies out of 7 from the website.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying that's,
With those vacancies, because there's so many people, it doesn't matter that there are those vacancies, is that what you're saying, or that you want to fill those vacancies?
maybe that the
You
whole
think-
committee needs to be reevaluated. For example, Council on Aging meets at 9 in the morning. I forgot what day of the week it is. And I would probably defer to Councilor Schnepp, who's the liaison there, that maybe the elders don't want to get to a meeting at 9 in the morning. Maybe they want to meet at a different time if there's a new makeup of that committee. And I don't know how long they've been meeting at 9 in the morning.
That would be the committee chair
John Joe.
that decides
Mhm.
meeting time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also reach out to any of the chairs at any point in time and ask, you know, if you're having a quorum issue, we noticed you shouldn't be, why are you having the quorum issue? Are the members not showing up? Because you can also remove members from a committee if they miss 3 consecutive meetings.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think we should be asking for a year's worth of attendance.
Absolutely.
Just to be, I mean, maybe there's a good reason somebody's not coming, but if they're holding a seat and disabling a quorum, then we should at least, say, hey, maybe it's time to move aside for now, and, we can.
And the Human Services Committee does not have a quorum issue. They just don't attend. So Cheryl is working with those members. One of them is Stephen Exaros, and he gets called away a lot because of his state rep work. But he attends the majority of them. The other ones, they've been, because I do all their meeting minutes, so they've got a report that they want to put together, and they want to design a their web page with everything that they've done for the whole year as far as contacts and presentations and I've got to make sure that that's okay with the communications director first, because she, obviously you don't want to put something on there. So once that chair of that committee puts all of that information together, that's going to be transferred to Lynn to say what is allowed and what's not allowed. And then their webpage will change, but they have been meeting pretty regularly. And I think they're only down 1 member. Cheryl was confused. She thought that there was alternates, and the Human Services Committee doesn't have alternates. And you don't necessarily want to increase the membership just because you've got 5 that aren't showing up. You don't want to add 3, you know what I mean, to replace the 5. Just, you got to deal with the 5 that aren't showing up.
Yeah, see, I'm just worried about a bottleneck. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
And what we did in the last appointments is we would try to do 4 or 5 meetings. Because most interviews are 10 minutes, 90 minutes at the most. So if we can bang out 4 or 5 in a meeting, then we're not gonna run into that bottleneck in March, because March comes, it's gonna get very busy.
Yeah, do it. How many meetings then? 5? 4?
because come March, you'll have to decide whether or not you want to call everybody in that term is expiring for interviews, since maybe you people have never, you folks have never met them, you know, because they've been on the board forever. And do you want them called in for interviews? And if you do, then that, you know, is timely too.
Yeah.
It all depends on what you guys want to do.
Yeah, and plus, I'm a big believer in giving deference to people who have served.
Mhm.
Especially the alternates who can go into the meetings. So I believe in that because, you know, they serve.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea.
We do have a request from the historical commission to move their alternate up, so that'll be on your next meeting. So those requests do come in. I
Sure.
know there was some members that had some questions on how alternates become full members. It comes from the board.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the one that's on our on this agenda for tonight, the board didn't want to make that decision. They want you to make that decision.
Mhm.
But typically it comes from the chair of the committee and the members because they all work together.
Mhm.
This committee doesn't work with each member, so they
Sure.
know firsthand
Mhm.
if there's consensus or not on the boards.
So you guys want to set it? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I have another, thing to point out, the licensing authority, unless you can tell me otherwise, looks like they have a vacancy, from what I can tell, it's a regular member,
Mhm,
but they have 3 associates.
mhm.
So
That's on our agenda, your agenda for this evening to discuss that. Nancy Kidman
Yes,
and Larry
yes,
Decker are both. The new Jessica Silva does not want to move up. She was just placed on there a couple months ago,
yes, I remember.
brand new.
Mhm.
But the other ones are long-serving associates.
Right,
And typically I reach out to the chair, which I did. And then I reached out to Mr. Anthony, who also attends that meeting, and Aaron Logan.
Mhm.
And the correspondence, I believe, is in
Yeah.
your packet,
that's all. Mhm.
and they want you to decide which person to move.
Sure. Okay, thank you. No, that's very helpful.
So then you can either decide to call both of them in for interviews. Or,
I think that would be fair.
Good idea.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
and what I'll do is reach out to both and ask them to come in, you know, for your next meeting
Mhm.
for an interview. For
For-
consideration of placement on the full member position.
Sure.
They both have shown interest, they both sent emails to me saying, yes,
Mhm.
they would like to be a full member, so it would be up to the committee, who you recommend.
Okay.
That would be good follow through with what we discussed at our first meeting.
Absolutely. Anything else before we start setting the agenda for the next meeting?
Not for me. I don't think. Is that all? Did we do all the stuff on our agenda?
The only other thing on there is, there's one reappointment for the Mid-Cape Cultural Council, Carolyn Farrell. Her term expired in December, and because the appointments committee hadn't met and it was being reorganized, you do have to, vote and act on that. And then the resignation, you really can't do anything with that other than it's kind of notification that somebody says, I'm all set, I'm done.
Mhm.
Wendy was, a very, as Mark Mills said, a very big asset to the CPAC committee, but, unfortunately, she's got to step down. So that's the only other thing.
And Cindy, can I just ask a clarification question?
Sure.
Under the energy, infrastructure and energy, it says 2 regular members' terms expire 6/30/24 and 6/30/26.
Right, that means there's 2 members. One member, his term expires 24. One member expires in 2026. So there's only 2 vacancies with 2 different expiration dates.
So if I understand correctly, they're filling a partial term,
Correct,
1 year and 2 years,
correct.
and the whole term is 3
Yeah,
years.
because they're staggering for all 5 members or 7 members on a committee. They're staggering terms, so that not everybody expires all at once in the committee, you know, fold. They stagger them.
And there were times last time that both wanted to be full members with a full term,
Mhm.
but we decided which one, you know. You got a year or 2 years, whatever. So, yeah.
And some applicants don't want to be on for 3 years, and the
Yeah.
terms are 24 and 25 and 26, and you want to obviously put them on for the longest one, because they'll serve longer, and you don't have to worry about reappointing them every year. But a lot of them, they say, you know what, can you just try me out for a year
Mhm.
and see how it goes? And you know, it's whatever the applicant basically wants to put the last appointments committee, whatever their term was, if there was more than one.
So are you guys good with twice a month until
Yeah.
we get through March?
But they do,
Fine with me.
Okay. It's another hard part. It's finance.
Fridays seem to work though. Can you do it on 2 Fridays?
I can do, like I said, I do my own schedule, so what the consensus is, I'll work it.
I think it was just Councilor Burdick,
Yeah,
because you have your prudential meeting. correct?
yeah, well, they're on Mondays,
Mondays.
the fourth Monday, or third Monday. I always get confused about that. I have other board stuff, but the best day for me at this point is Friday in the afternoon time. Just based on all my stuff. As time goes by and into the spring and summer, every day's a bad day, but I'll work it out. So, but for now, anyway, for me, that would be the best day. But I can do Thursday, well, any Thursdays that are not town council meeting days. But then we have other boards and commissions to consider.
Well, it seems like Friday doesn't.
Well, nobody does anything there on Friday. There's no other,
Friday with each other.
nobody else is meeting.
Thank you.
Friday good? All right, what time? Is this time good, 3 o'clock
For
or?
me, 3 is fine, 3:30, 4. I don't,
Line with me too.
3 is good with me.
The only reason I creep it a little later is if working people have to take time off.
For interviews, what do you mean for the interviews?
For interviews, I'm sorry.
Start an hour early, like 4:30? And if you're doing 5 interviews at a meeting, those that can't get there right at 4:30 usually come in.
Or maybe even that.
Legally, could we say 3, but switch to 4:30? As long as we get the 48 hours notice. So for instance, we'll say, okay, it's gonna be at 3 o'clock. Okay, but this particular week, people can't come until 4:30. So as long as we get the 48 hours, we can switch the meeting to 4:30, correct?
Yeah, you want to set the time though as best as you can.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like the base time is of 3 o'clock. Because the thing I worry about is on a Friday, a lot of people have dinner plans.
Mhm.
You know, maybe going away.
Or you can set your time for 3 PM, but not start your interviews till 4:30. In other words, you handle all your stuff that you want to discuss in the middle from 3 to, say, 3:30. And then you can start your interviews at 4, because we've had it before where we have set actual times for people. Like, you know, John Smith comes in at 4:15, you know, Sally comes in at 4:30. It was 15-minute intervals.
Yeah,
You can go back to doing that.
I
if
like
you'd
that.
Like to.
I like it more structured. So I like that. You guys
And that
like
way, people aren't sitting here at 3 PM waiting for 5 other people to go before them. They know they only have to show up at 5:15 for their interview.
Mhm.
That's a thought.
Yeah.
It'll be designated, obviously, on the agenda of which time people are coming in, and that's what I usually email them. These are the time slots we have open. Does any of the time work for your interview slot? And they usually email me back and say, yeah, 4:15 is better for me then.
So why don't we do it this way then? Why don't we slot 3 to 5?
Okay,
Last interview at 4:45. Does that work for everybody?
absolutely.
Yeah.
For me.
okay.
And also, if you have a structure to the question and answer time, I mean, like when I hire people, I don't sit with them for an hour and say, well, tell me all, you know, like, you know what I mean? You get a feeling right off the bat.
Yeah.
If you have 15 or 20 minutes, you can be succinct and you can keep it to the point, get the business over with.
And it's, you know, as, you know, we go along and we get more experience as a board, we'll get more into a flow of it,
Right.
you know, and we'll have our baseline questions. You know, and of course, that may vary depending on what board we're in.
So was the choice the first Friday and the second Friday of March?
That's good with me. It's, you know, up to the rest of you.
So the first and second Fridays.
I won't be here the first Friday, but you just carry on, help me in a way.
Where are we going?
Going,
Sailing the Virgin Islands?
I'm not back until the 11th, so
Well, I'll meet you guys down there, because I really, really miss it. Yeah.
All right,
I
so
don't think I'm gonna be.
March
there.
1st and 8th, is that what we're talking about?
On the-
first Friday and the
Third.
second Friday.
So we have a quorum, because we have 3, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be there on the
Yeah, we have a quorum.
second time.
And if you guys want me to ask any questions, just let me know and I'll ask questions for you. Because it's not that we have to make decisions that day,
Sure.
so.
Yeah, as long as you have 3, you have quorum.
So, I was gonna say, thanks to Cindy for scheduling 4 people today. It's just that 4 people weren't available.
And the majority of it was because of the weather.
Uh,
They were not here and then they couldn't get back here. One of them does travel and he did apologize. He wrote the wrong Friday on his calendar. But they all want to be reconsidered for March and I told them absolutely that we put
Yeah.
you on the next March agenda.
So we're gonna meet the first and third Friday.
First and
First
second,
and second Friday.
Oh, first and second Friday?
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row?
oh, I won't be here Friday.
Oh.
I misunderstood. I thought we were meeting
You wanna
every
do-
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to get the first and second to get because we're gonna have a lodging at the end of
Okay, I
March.
misunderstood.
Okay,
But like, as I said, you have any questions, just let us know, because you'll see the agenda.
yeah,
And we can ask the questions and you can always watch them,
yeah.
and obviously you'll be here to vote because you'll see everything.
yeah, you can watch the meeting after because it'll be recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that you want to watch it when you're sailing, but.
That's why I love cruises and stuff,
Yeah,
because my phone's been ringing since I've been here, and that's the only time nobody can really touch it.
no signal.
So then you can relax.
So in addition to these 3 that are coming, you would also interview the 2 for elevating through the licensing authority. And we would only be considering 2 at that time to elevate, because they're already associate members.
So you want me to put on, your next agenda, the licensing authority for consideration of either Larry or Nancy. And then, for the historical, we'll have that one for consideration that, they're emailing me. I'll probably receive it on Monday, who they want to bring up from an associate to a full member position, so you'll have that one. And then,
Then these 3, I think that's already 6 people.
What was the committee again that didn't want to make the decision on who to put forth?
that's the licensing authority. Yeah, and you can reach out to the chair and have a conversation with them. I suggest you do.
Yeah,
Because again, you haven't sat, you don't know these people.
well, you want to make sure they work well with others.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's always, the chair's a great guy, so he'll talk to you.
Now, just one other thing that's kind of a different subject. Main Street waterfront, historical Main Street waterfront historical appeals.
Mhm.
When people apply for them,
Mhm.
we need to let them know the jurisdictional,
Correct. You have to live within a certain mile
yeah,
radius of the Hyannis Main Street.
yeah, because we ran into that last time.
Yeah, we did.
So they have to know.
Yep.
You have to, or you have to have a business on Main Street.
Right. Right. And I have that question into Karen Nova, our town attorney, and she's gonna clarify it
Yeah,
and come up with something for me to actually read that
yeah,
I'll be able to, in the event somebody does apply, because I said to her, I need something beside me when somebody submits an application for that, so that I can look at it and say, you don't fit, you do fit, you
yeah.
don't qualify, whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's gonna.
Because I remember that last time we ran into that a couple
Yeah.
times.
So just so I'm clear, our goal, our order of what we're working on, the committees that we're working on are infrastructure and energy, the ZBA.
Mhm.
And then from there, where are we moving to? We have.
You're gonna call,
licensing.
yeah, you want me to call in Larry Decker and Nancy Carlson Lidman to
For
be interviewed
licensing?
before your committee
Mhm.
for licensing.
Right.
for a full member position. They're both associates right now.
Yeah.
And they have a vacancy for a full member.
Mhm.
They're longtime serving.
Yeah.
Individuals. Um,
And then from where do we think we will start?
Historical, but it's also an elevation.
and then,
An associate too.
yeah, I heard from,
Okay.
one of the members on the historical right before we came into this meeting.
Mhm.
And they wanted to know, if they could elevate one of their members to the full member position that was open, and they wanted to know what the procedure was. So I emailed them and told them that I needed a recommendation from their committee
Mhm.
of who they wanted to move up. I would place that on the appointments committee agenda for consideration. And then if the appointments committee agreed, it would go through 2 reads at the town council level. And then he or she would get a letter saying that you've been moved from your alternate to a full member.
Right, and historical is regulatory,
Oh,
No,
just advisory?
Mhm.
that's the vacancy, caused by the passing of Nancy Clark that was recognized last night.
Mhm.
long serving. She served forever on that. That was her passion. Historical.
Okay.
And, reappointments, if we can kind of put a bug in the area. So who wants to be reappointed, who doesn't?
I can start the process early.
Yeah, that's what we should probably do,
Sure.
because at least we can get them in and clear the deck.
Yep.
So that when new people apply, you know.
And I also mentioned to Mr. Schulte that I was gonna do the same thing that I did last year. Was on our vacancy list. We had those vacancies that were current right now with nobody in the seat. And then potential vacancies as of 6/30/2024 for the public to see.
That's good.
So that if you see something on the potential vacancy at the end of June,
Mhm.
you can put your application in ahead of time, and I plan on doing that list. That should be up by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Good.
So that people can start to get a head start of who's expiring, not actually who the person is, but what committee has expiring members at the end of June.
And don't forget too, if we do run into a log jam, we can always schedule another meeting. We just gotta get 40,000.
And the members currently that are in their respective roles, they stay there until either somebody replaces them or they're reappointed. So even if you do get backlog, no committee is gonna put everybody that expires in June off their committee. They stay within that and they operate the same until they're either replaced or reappointed. So you shouldn't have a mass exodus of people if you don't get to all the reappointments in June.
So I have a question regarding the, Carolyn Farrell from the Mid-Cape Council. So it says that her term expired at the end of
December, so she's still functioning as her normal role. She still has an active vote in the committee. It was recommended by both the chair and the vice chair that she be reappointed. She's an active member, shows up at every meeting, and her term had expired at the end of December. But the last appointments committee had not met in December until the new reorg, so that's why it's on this agenda. So she emailed me yesterday and wanted to know what the status of that was. And I said, well, as long as the appointments committee agrees, then
So can I move to just?
yes,
Yeah,
Get her
Sure.
appointed?
absolutely. You can do that, make a motion and have someone second it, and then everybody can just raise their hand.
What are we voting on now?
Reappointing Carolyn Farrell, whose term expired at the end of December, but was never reappointed. And both the chair and vice chair has recommended that she get reappointed. And she's been,
I'd like to know something about.
then do you want to call
We,
it?
we can hold off if you want me to pull her application and.
Yeah.
Sure, you can hold off doing it, and you can do the first meeting in March. I'll pull her information.
I mean, I wish I knew her, but yeah, you probably know her, but I don't want to vote on anybody that I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Fair is fair. Absolutely. She still remains where she is. There's no issue. She doesn't come off the committee. It's just, they like that reassurance that they got appointed for another 3, or were recommended to be reappointed for another.
Why did her term end at the end of December?
The Mid-Cape Cultural runs on a state stature as
I see.
well as
Got
the town. much like the Main Street Hyannis. So they have to follow two different guidelines.
Okay.
Anything else?
Do we have?
What's that?
I'm muttering to myself.
Speak up now, forever hold your peace.
Next.
All right, so it's all agreed, just so we're clear for the public, that you're gonna hold on items E. E. F, there's not really much you can do with, because when somebody resigns, they would just resign. And you're gonna hold off on D, which is the consideration for Nancy and or Larry to your next meeting for, because they're gonna be called in for interviews.
Mhm.
Perfect.
So other question is, for the infrastructure and ZBA, are we gonna, wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks for other applicants to apply?
Well, since our next meeting is in 2 weeks, I think we should keep it open for 2 weeks.
Yeah, the next meeting's already forward. With,
Well, just because you close the application process doesn't mean you can't have them coming in another 2 weeks. You get what I mean?
Mhm.
What do you guys think of that?
Sounds good.
So what, do you ever cap the number of, could there be a trigger if there's a cap to the number of applications you receive for a particular committee?
I think it's just done by time limit.
Right. So
Because
say,
anybody
for
can
instance,
apply.
Right, but like, do we ever use that? Would we ever use that as a trigger to close a period for applications? Do you know what I mean? Like, say you get 10 applications, and then you decided that we'll take 10, and then we're gonna make a decision. You know what I'm saying? If you, rather than have a time period.
Well, I think if you get,
handicap,
I
know
think
what
if you get somebody who's immensely qualified,
Right,
you can make a decision. But I would like to have everybody submit applications so we can look over everybody, because to me, that's the only fair way to do it.
no, of course, but I guess what I was trying to say is, so yeah, I guess that explains.
Yeah,
So
I mean-
if we had 10, 15, 20, it doesn't matter, you just would say. okay,
Yeah,
we're gonna
it's
do
just-
20 interviews.
Like I said, it's by time limit.
Right,
You know, if we get 50 applications in the next 2 weeks, hey,
right, so we'd be looking to make a decision, say, for instance, on this one at the end or the first meeting of April.
hopefully we can get through all the applications, yes, the first meeting of April,
Got it.
and make decisions.
And then for ZBA, there will be some terms that will be up to consider.
Yeah,
So
so,
there'll be another opportunity
yeah,
in a couple of months.
I can tell you not a lot of applications have come in, and the ZBA's been up on our website for over a month and a half.
Right, and do we have any metric, is there any way that, any metric that you can, or you may only know from your own involvement in this process, but so if you were to look at it on a year-over-year basis, how many applications do we generally receive by this time in the year? Because most of these, the appointment calendar and the rolling of it is about probably the same with each year.
Forever moving.
So, and it will hit the same milestones at a given point in a year, right? So how many, where are we in the number of applications we've received this year up to now as compared to last year or the year before? I know that's a kind of a random question that you probably can't just pull up the answer to, but
It's probably information I could quantify, but it's also depending on what's going on in the town
right,
at the time, drives a lot of it. A lot of applications, like we went through. Planning board is a huge, when there's vacancies or terms about to expire on that. We get a considerable amount of applications when that happens. It all depends on the board, committee or commission.
right, how attractive it is to people, because there are
Correct.
some that regular.
But on an average, on a monthly average, I would say maybe 5 applications.
Right,
I don't think, and probably on average, last term, we interviewed probably 3 to 4 on average every meeting.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, because this is the way that I think about things, trying to keep track of what, where are we in the overall process? What is it, it helps me understand,
Mhm.
What is the trend line like when it comes to who's gonna participate, who we can expect to participate, and what we can expect in terms of filling openings, and how many people is a reasonable, how many can we expect to get for a given position And then what is a reasonable way to go through that number of people? Again, this is just me speaking, thinking out loud.
Yeah,
Because-
no, you want as many residents as possible to submit applications to serve on our board. I mean, we advertise everywhere.
Right,
Um,
everywhere meaning, the newspaper,
all of Lynn Poyon's communications. It's also on our town council web
right,
page. If you click on vacancies, you can always see them. You can scroll through every committee page and look at every member that's on there and see
Right.
the information for yourself. Yeah, we try to encourage as many people as possible to put in applications, but, it's a tenacious time, it's.
right, it can be somewhat thankless at times, and then people, it is a volunteer position. Anyway,
Yeah.
those are just thoughts.
And I also think that, some of the committees, they need to hear from their liaisons, they need to hear that the work they're doing matters.
Right.
You may not be a regulatory board, but a lot of our advisory boards have fantastic ideas that never leave the committee table. And it's a shame.
Why is
They don't know, I don't know, they don't know if they have, enough, if their idea will go anywhere. They're supposed to submit their ideas to the town manager. And I don't know if every committee knows that.
There's been a fundamental breakdown
Mm-hmm,
of the whole committee structure,
mm-hmm,
because they're supposed to have annual reports. They're supposed to submit stuff to the town manager.
Yeah.
Some committees have liaisons actually participating in meetings. which-
And voting.
In voting, which they're not supposed to.
which you can't
You
do.
know, so
Liaisons
I
are
think that
voting.
it's, it's a good idea, especially for these committee heads, to be brushed up on their parliamentary responsibilities.
Mhm.
And it's also something that the town manager has to tell them, we need to get these things submitted, because when I was on Main Street Waterfront, they had fantastic ideas.
Mhm.
They really did. They had some great ideas.
Sort of the disability committee,
Yeah.
commission.
Yeah,
And the other thing that one of the disability commission members were saying is that when there's like new construction going in, or there's new things happening within the town, nobody reached out to them to say, hey, we're planning this at this intersection, what do you think? And I think we just need to involve more of the advisory committees in the planning of what actually goes on. Because a lot of them do have great ideas, but they're supposed to submit it to the town manager.
Mhm.
But I also think a reminder to all of the advisory and the regulatory that this is what you need to do, this is what you should do. I know the town clerk tries to tell all the clerks of the committees to please send their minutes in. I have to agree with, the gentleman that you interviewed tonight, when he said he looked on the webpage, couldn't find agendas or meeting notices, because they're not there. And it happened to Counselor Clark when she was trying to figure out a day for this committee to meet. If you don't have your minutes or meetings posted, nobody knows you're meeting. So it's just a brush up, I think, that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And we just need to emphasize that, I guess, as the appointments committee, up to every chance you get, maybe even at the town council meeting. If you're a clerk of any one of these boards, committees, and commissions, please make sure your minutes are in, your agendas are posted. So that the public knows you're meeting and what they're meeting about.
So could we, I mean, this is an aside, but, could we as a committee, make a recommendation to Felicia and Craig to have, you said that there was a council president who called in the various committee heads, like, we're doing all these informational things.
Jessica
right?
Rossetti was town council president one year, and she would take the list of committees and go alphabetically and call
Right.
them in at each meeting. We had 2 or 3 of them, and they would do maybe a 5-minute presentation of what they've been working on.
Right. Well, maybe that would be a good place for us to start, or something for us to think about, that maybe, because now, if you've noticed, we have, the council is having a lot more, well, up to now, with this new iteration, informational things that have been put into the agenda that hadn't appeared, of late. That maybe now is a good time to start, or to recommend, if that's even within our purview, to start doing something like that, to kind of bring these committees to the forefront, also bring them, get them in front of everybody, say hello, see what are you doing, what's going on, and then remind everyone of what the nature of these bodies are.
Because it also helps, a lot of them have great ideas, with what's going on now,
Right.
you know?
So maybe as a part of it, we can, I don't know if that's something you want to do, Jeff, but.
Yeah, well, no, we can mention, anybody can mention to Felicia, and she can put
Right.
it on, she can put it on the agenda.
Because that would be pretty useful, I think, just by and large. And then, we can never again say we don't know anybody who's on these committees who's sitting because at least we'll
Well,
look at it.
and plus, the liaison thing, I understand it, but it's not a perfect,
Well, it doesn't have any teeth,
it's, well, and it's not a perfect tool, because you have a business,
right?
you're a doctor. Chris is very wealthy and retired. Same with Charlie. I have a business. We have lives, and we can't meet we can't always go to all these different meetings. Life gets in the way. So if we can have these committees report to the council, at least they're not getting it secondhand, they're getting it firsthand from the committee chairmans themselves.
Exactly, because it's, each of these committees, whether they're regulatory or advisory, are delegations of the authority of the legislative body of the town, which is the
Yeah.
town council. So really it is us, because like, for instance, I'm appearing before the Mashpee Board of Selectmen for an alcohol license. They don't have a licensing authority.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's really, if we didn't have these bodies, we would be sitting there hearing every application for a license for
Mhm.
alcohol or used car dealer or
Mhm.
making a zoning, whatever the issue would be. All these are delegations of the responsibility that's bestowed upon the town council. So it really is like us making the decision. And this process is us making the decision to put the person to make the decision. So I think we should definitely talk to see if Felicia and Craig are into that.
I'm sure,
So
I'm
that
sure,
we can,
yeah, I'm sure they will be, and to be quite honest with you, it's good for all the boards and committees. Should
Absolutely.
always report to the council,
absolutely.
because it's good for transparency purposes.
And also, sometimes there have to be, you say like some of these committees don't meet, some of these committees, don't have a quorum, and some of them are having these weird meeting times or whatever, and there's gotta be teeth behind things sometimes, you know what I mean? That you have to come and say, and we're all gonna be sitting there and on Thursday night and be like, wow, why? Is it?
Yeah,
Would you
well,
have
and
it
the thing about it is that if these committees aren't meeting and they're not meeting quorum, then we have to either temporarily suspend the committee or abolish it, because it costs the town money.
Right.
And it's wasted money.
So do we think we want to ask the committees as a broadcast to the committees at this point, to have each committee give us a summary of last year's goings on? And give that, they're theoretically supposed to do that to the town manager already at this point anyway. But we're kind of giving it the teeth of the rule, which is it should have already been done. And ask for those to be given over to the town council. That way, at least we can disseminate that information out. If we have 40 some odd committees, for us to get 3 of those for every meeting, we're gonna be into like next year waiting. Maybe we need a clean summary of what each committee has been doing in the last year, how it's been performing in meeting, and what they're working on and what they're planning on working on in the next year. So that the town council has that as like a playbook.
Yeah.
And we need that now. I think it's great to have them come, but if we only have 3 or 4 and there's 40 committees and we have a meeting every 2 weeks, we're looking at like,
Next year.
yeah,
Well,
so maybe.
I think, like Cynthia said, 5-minute presentation. And with the way that, we have to speak to Felicia and Craig about it, but the way that we can structure it is like last night was a late night.
Maybe.
A 3-hour meeting is a very late night,
Yeah,
so give 15 minutes.
but maybe we want to get the information now in hand.
Would we,
Because-
Oh, so to
Yeah.
read it, not have them come in and present it, just
Yeah, because-
give reports.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean,
okay, I see
start,
what
and
you're
maybe there's,
Yeah.
then from those reports, we say, what, we want to call to task these 4 committees to come and speak to us, because we feel like we need other people in town to know, or
Yeah.
maybe we need to pull them to task or whatever, but I feel like at this point, we just need to all know what's going on in the town. And if we have to wait for a light,
I see what you're saying, yeah.
what if that isn't for like
Yeah.
8 meetings from now, we have, then we're waiting to put them on.
Yeah, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah,
Heather.
we just need to get those like what went on last year? What are your plans in the next 12 months? How is your committee doing? How can we help you? What's not working? Bring it all together, and then at least the town council knows what's going on, because then maybe we would start doing some things more effectively or differently that would make us actually use our committees more effectively.
Would that be the purview of the town manager or us?
What's that?
I'd like to see us do
Well, we have, we have to,
See,
I don't
ask the
know,
town manager, where are the reports?
well,
Can you give them to us?
Well-
And then we can look at this stuff because we need this stuff to make decisions on the kind of people we want in these committees.
absolutely.
But also then we can pass on the information to the town council. Hey, all those committees over there, they didn't submit their report, and then the town council can put the pressure on. But we get information as quick as possible, the information that's there.
Yeah, see, my question is that the reports are supposed to be submitted to the town manager.
So he should have,
He should
and
have.
can
them,
we
but-
ask him for them?
Yeah, we can ask them for
And
them, but I don't know if we can ask the committees for them. That's my question.
No, I can.
Oh, okay, see, there you go.
I'll reach out to the chairs and
There you
ask
go.
them for their annual report that they're gonna submit to the town manager
Yeah,
on what they worked on in 2023.
when is
There you
it
go.
supposed to be in by?
in January.
In January, the beginning of, yeah, the end of December, you usually start, Lynn. Well, I handled the town council one in a while ago, but yeah, it goes in, because they're all supposed to be in the annual Barnstable report. Every committee that is operable is supposed to be in there with a report of what they worked on, and that report is usually given to the town manager. It's in all of their charge that they're
yeah,
interrelation.
but I mean, people have to follow the rules in structure. We have to work in structure.
Yeah.
You know,
Every committee has a parameter, every committee has a charge. They have to stay within that charge, they can't, they're not supposed to go outside the charge.
and I know that there were several committees that were going outside their charge.
Or just underperforming and not showing up and not,
Well, getting together for social hour.
yeah, like, or like not even meeting or having, like we've said, we need to figure out why are they not meeting, what
Mhm.
needs to be done.
Mhm.
How can we resurrect them? Is it new blood?
Or we need to
Or
trim
is
the
it-
fat.
Yeah, or is
Yeah.
it that we don't need that committee?
Yeah,
If I may, I believe that Council President, Penn intends to set up a subcommittee to do exactly that.
Oh.
To evaluate the committees, a committee on committees, and leave us to appointments.
yeah, but in the meantime, you can
I'll ask
request,
for the reports.
you can request the reports, because
And
that,
that way you'll have an idea of who actually has completed them, who hasn't, who's still working on them.
and that way, we can, when, Felicia sets up the subcommittees, they can actually have information.
I can do that. No harm in asking for the
Because the
reports.
subcommittee with no information is just a get together.
It's
Right.
just another committee.
Right,
I think that some of the town reports fell off track during COVID,
mhm,
so,
A lot of things there.
yeah.
so we're playing catch up.
No harm in asking him what has been submitted to date from boards, committees, and commissions.
It
Because I was
seems,
taking a look at them.
And he'll either say, I have some or I don't.
regulatory committees, it seems like their reports are sort of like, you can just watch the videos and you can see what they do, it's all regulatory, right? But the other committees have a different kind of a report. It's more like, what projects have you been working on?
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing that we're asking for.
Any reports that the town manager has received from any of their boards, committees, or commissions on 2023 reporting,
My understanding is a one pager.
probably, yeah. I know the Human Services Committee hasn't submitted anything yet.
Kinda like my-
They're working on it, but they haven't done it yet.
That's kind of like my reports in college. Page.
Is it single space, double space?
Triple. Just run on sentences.
Throw all those adjectives in there, and leave it at C, which I could never do.
Do AI now and have a 50-page report.
Well, I wish I had AI when I did my dissertation. No, I
Anything
didn't.
else?
Yes, it is. Can we, this might be a big project, but can we ask of the committees for the attendance, especially for.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
For what, 1 year?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the past year.
I can do that.
Yeah,
I'll put it in my email to them about the.
because, unfortunately, we have a lot of snowbirds.
Mhm.
But if they're not able to make the most of the committee, just when they're here, then we need to replace them.
Right, why
Because they're not effective committee members.
truant members?
Yeah.
The question, yeah, I mean, I guess that'll come up in the other committee, the committee on. Committees.
Geez, man, we're really starting to sound like Washington. all of a sudden. Anything else?
Move to adjourn. Second. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
All right.
Second.